Hello, everyone. How are you? How are you? How are you? Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. For those of you that are tuning in from my YouTube page, I want to say thank you very much for being a part. Thank you for liking, for sharing, for subscribing. I really appreciate your input, your comments, um, your engagement. You guys are amazing. And for those of you that are watching from my podcast, Fundable by Design. Where's the money, right? I want to welcome you. I hope that you are enjoying the rebrand of the podcast to Fundable by Design. Was the name of the podcast that we've come up with because we want to make sure that we are clear that your organization should be designed to generate revenue. That Fundable by Design and where's the money should be a part of how you start your nonprofit organization. So, as we continue to navigate the podcast and as we continue to put together content that we hope will get you and put you in position to be fundable by design and answer the question, where is the money? That you continue to enjoy the nuggets and the information that we share through the podcast. Again, thank you for your liking, your sharing, and your subscribing. Your engagement is amazing. Today, we want to talk about the visible and invisible work of the nonprofit organization. I want to say that again. Today, we want to focus on the visible and the invisible work of the nonprofit organization and what leads to why, the reason why most nonprofit organizations get stuck. Okay. For those of you that are saying, Jen, I started my nonprofit organization, but we don't have enough funding. Jen, I started my nonprofit organization and I'm paying for everything out of my pocket. Jen, I started my nonprofit organization and I don't have grants. Jen, I started my nonprofit organization and my board is not helping raise money. Jen, I started my nonprofit organization, but we don't have enough funding to grow. And now you're stuck. Okay? I want to talk about the hidden work that no one warned you about or advised you on when you started your nonprofit organization. Okay. When you started your organization, most new leaders aren't aware of misalignment. Okay, misalignment. Now, who am I to talk about this? My name is Jennifer. I am a nonprofit expert, 40 years. 40 years of experience working in the nonprofit space. I am a fundraiser. I am a grant writer. I am a professional and master nonprofit strategist. What does that mean? That means my job, my career has been to help thousands of nonprofit organizations put together the systems, the strategy, the structure to generate the revenue for their work, right? Our work in the nonprofit space costs money. You've got materials, you got supplies, you have equipment, you have staff, you have space, you have accounting, you have financial management, you have fundraising. There are real expenses to running the nonprofit organization. However, for most people who start their nonprofit organization, they never worked in a nonprofit. They never started a nonprofit. They never ran a nonprofit. And so many of you file your paperwork without being aware of what it takes to run and operate the nonprofit organization. There's also an assumption that your program, the work that you want to do, is the nonprofit. And that's not true. You automatically have two hats, an invisible and visible hat. Okay? Two hats. The program hat is the visible hat, right? That's your helping, that's your serving, that's your mentoring, that's your educating, that's your touching the community. That's what you see. Then you have the invisible hat, which is the administration. That's the accounting. That's the bookkeeping. That's the fundraising. That's the financial management. That's the leadership. That's the strategy. So most new nonprofit organizations believe that when they start their nonprofits, success looks like, right? We started our nonprofit organization, Jim, and now we're hosting programs. Now we're serving people. Now we're doing community events. Now we have testimonials of the lives that we are touching. You have visible activity, right? That's the visible work. That's the feeding. That's the sheltering. That's the handing out the backpacks. That's the mentoring youth, right? That's the visible work. But what determines whether a nonprofit survives long term is something entirely different. I want you to hear me. Most new leaders begin their work and they are driven by only by the success of their program, right? Jen, we're helping people. Jen, we're serving the community. Jen, we're hosting events. Jen, we were sharing our social media, right? Jen, we have testimonials. The work is visible. However, most of your struggles most of your struggles as it relates to funding, as it relates to board acquisition and leadership, as it relates to growing your relationship with donors and funders, it's not because of the visible work. It's the invisible work that no one told you about, right? The people that say, start a nonprofit, you can get a grant. Start a nonprofit, you can get a grant. You know what? Your program can get a grant. So you're thinking, I can get a grant for doing the visible work. I can get a grant for my program. I can get a grant to get a building for my program. I can get a grant to continue to do the work. But that is the visible work, right? The visible work is running your programs, serving clients, distributing the resources, community engagement, posting your photos, organizing events, and that work is meaningful. It feels productive, right? You're busy. You're doing all of the visible work. It feels productive. It generates emotional validation, right? It's your passion work. It makes you feel like you're really doing something amazing, and you are. But visible work alone does not build a fundable organization. The visible work alone does not get the attention of your donors, your supporters, your contributors. The visible work that you are pouring your passion into is not what's going to attract long-term sustainability. Now, what is the invisible work? Right? Again, many of you started your nonprofit organization because of what you saw of a nonprofit. Jen, there's a nonprofit down the street. They have a transitional house. Visible work. Jen, there's a nonprofit where they hand out backpacks. Visible work. Jen, there's a nonprofit organization that's mentoring youth. Visible work. Jen, there's an organization that's housing veterans. Visible work. And so many of you are familiar with the visible work of a nonprofit organization. And so from your perspective, you think the work is visible, right? That's all there is to the work. Let me start a nonprofit. Let me get a grant so that my visible work can get funding. But this is the part that no one talks about: the invisible work. What is the invisible work? The invisible work that comes before the visible work. I'm going to say that again. The invisible work comes before the visible work. Now, nobody's talking about this but me, okay? Everybody's out here talking about you can get a grant, you can get a grant, you can get funding, you should fundraise. But where does money come from? It comes from the invisible work, right? So the invisible work is your governance development, your financial systems, your policies and controls, your fundraising planning, your donor cultivation, your outcome tracking, your sustainability modeling, your board engagement, your risk management, compliance. That's the invisible work of the organization. You started a nonprofit organization. The organization is designed to do the invisible work. The mission is on the organization. The mission is accomplished through the success of the program, which is the visible work. But the organization comes first. The organization is what you started. The organization is what you run. The organization is where the money goes. The organization has to be structured properly to build the trust, the credibility of the donor, the funder, and the supporter. It is not through only the visible work. Are y'all picking up what I'm putting down? Now, no one applauds the invisible work. No one prioritizes the importance of the invisible work. No one posts about the invisible work, right? But the funders, those who are making decisions on which organization gets the money, the donors, the supporters, the contributors, the sponsors, those that would align their resources, their cash, with the organization, they evaluate the invisible work first. I know. Y'all started this whole nonprofit thing thinking that, Jen, I want to start a nonprofit because I want to help single moms, visible work. Jen, I want to start a nonprofit so I can mentor youth, visible work. Jen, I want to start a nonprofit so I can help veterans, visible work. Jen, I want to start a nonprofit so that I can help those who are aging out of foster care, visible work. So you are driven by doing the visible work, the helping, the serving, the supporting, the mentoring, all of that visible work. However, your donors, your supporters, your contributors, your sponsors, those capital issuing authorities, they evaluate your invisible work first. And most of you right now are struggling with funding because you didn't do that invisible work. All you did was set up the program. All you did was put together the work, the services that you wanted to do. But it's the invisible work that builds sustainability. It is the invisible work that builds stability. Money is not your problem. You don't have a money problem. Your problem is that when you started your nonprofit organization, you did not put together the work, the structure, the systems, the foundation that no one sees. You didn't see it. You didn't put together your budget. You didn't put together a fundraising strategy. You didn't put together a plan for sustainability. You didn't put that together when you started. All you did was the paperwork. Jen, I started my nonprofit. I got my 501c3. That 501c3, that application, that paperwork that you filled out, it speaks about the invisible work, not that program, the visible work of the program. That's not what it talks about. That paperwork speaks about invisible work. It talks about, do you have a plan and a strategy to generate revenue for your organization for the next 3 to 4 years? That's what's on the paperwork. It says, do you have the knowledge, the means, the capacity, the experience to generate revenue for your organization? The gross annual receipts. Do you have the experience, the structure, the systems to generate the money into your organization for the next 3 to 4 years? That's the invisible work. And that's the part that you did not put together out of sequence. You went straight to, Jen, I started my nonprofit. This is the visible work. This is the visible work, Jen. We're helping the homeless. We're serving veterans. We're mentoring the youth. You started your nonprofit only focused on the visible work, but it's the invisible work, the work that you didn't know about, the work that no one guided you on, that builds sustainability. The visible work, the program, that showcases, right, what you do, your program. But without the invisible work, the visible work collapses. Jen, we don't have any funding. Mm-mm. Jen, I don't know how much this program costs. Jen, we don't have any donors and funders. Jen, funding is our biggest issue. Jen, I can't find board members. That has nothing to do with the visible work. That has nothing to do with the program. That has everything to do with we don't have a plan, we don't have a strategy, we don't have a system, we don't have the knowledge, we don't have the experience of how to attract. We don't know what to say. We don't know how to say it. We don't know where money comes from. We don't know that besides the grant, which is not guaranteed to everybody, how to get the other 14 streams of revenue. Many of you didn't even know you had 8 streams of revenue. Everybody has 8 streams of revenue. But you've got to get what? You've got to be able to do the work. What's the work, Jen? What's the work? Speaking about why this work is important, how much does this work cost? And how do you sustain this work? All that's in the grant application. Let me say this, and I want to be direct. Many of you, as new nonprofit leaders, you missed the invisible work. All right? You started your nonprofit organization. You started then doing the work of the program. Jen, I got my 501c3, and this is our program. Jen, I got my 501c3, and this is what our program does, right? So you now started doing the visible work. And you missed the invisible work, the structure, the planning, the long-term strategy for sustainability, team engagement and building, delegation, which is why many of you are doing everything by yourself. You didn't put together the structure, the plan, the strategy to be able even to delegate. So now you've got board members who are not able to help you. Why? Because it's all in your head. You're doing everything. You're running the board, you're running the program, you're trying to figure out how to do the fundraising, you're trying to learn how to do all the jobs and all the tasks. And you're stuck. And here's why. Here's why this happens. You were taught and told about the service of the nonprofit and not the structure of the nonprofit. I'm going to say that again. You are stuck right now, not because of money, but because you were trained, you were taught, or you only saw the service of the nonprofit and not the structure of the nonprofit. Your program and your organization are not the same thing. You automatically have two hats. You have a program hat and you have an organization hat. The organization hat has to be structured to generate the revenue to support itself, or this program hat doesn't have a chance. There's no money for materials, for supplies, for equipment, for staff. You're always there's no money, there's no money, there's no money, there's no money, there's no money. Money is not the issue. Structure of the organization is the issue. No, Jen, we don't have a plan to raise money. No, Jen, we don't know how to raise money. No, Jen, I didn't prioritize raising money when I started the organization. My priority, Jen, was the program service. And this is only an expense. The program is only an expense. So you weren't trained or structured on how much money are we going to need to operate every single week, every single month for the next 3 to 4 years. And then you confuse activity, right? The activity. Jen, this is what we do. We feed the homeless. We give out backpacks, Jen. We give out school supplies. We're mentoring the youth. We want to do a transitional house. All of those are activities. So you confuse activity with readiness to generate the money to keep those activities going. You confuse activity as what is going to attract a donor, a funder, a supporter, a contributor. So now you're not getting the grant. You're talking about all the activities that you do, but no, we don't have a budget. No, Jen, we don't have financial. No, Jen, I don't know how much this thing costs. No, Jim, we're not raising every. I'm paying as the executive lead director. I'm paying for everything out of my pocket, Jen. No, we don't have any supporters. But you've confused activity with being ready to generate money for the organization. Let me say this. This is the other reason that you're stuck. Social media celebrates the visible impact of your work, right? You're putting up photos of the program, the success. You're putting up photos and stories of testimonials of the people that have come through your organization that you've helped, right? But that's not infrastructure. That is not what leads to or gives you the capacity to scale, to build team, to hire help. And so no one explains that nonprofit leadership is organizational leadership, not program leadership. I'm going to say that again. No one explains that nonprofit leadership is organizational leadership. Organizational leadership is not the same as program leadership. Those are two distinct hats. And so many of you pour all of your energy into what feels productive. For you, what feels productive is the program. We're helping people. We're serving the community. We're touching the community. We're changing lives, right? So you're pouring all of your energy into those activities because that feels productive. But then what you neglect is what makes funding possible. All of your energy is poured into that program. But now you are neglecting what makes funding possible. Are you hearing what I'm saying? And this is why many of you are stuck. I want to connect the dots, okay? I want to connect the dots because many of you are like, Jen, we don't have funding. Jen, we don't have board members. Jen, we don't have any donors. Jen, we can't get grants. Jen, I'm doing everything by myself. Jen, I'm stuck and I don't know how to get unstuck. Jen, I've had my nonprofit for a long time, but we don't have supporters or contributors. Jen, I don't know how to find board members. I want to connect those dots. Okay? I want to connect the dots. When the invisible work of the organization, the administrative entity, right? The organization is the administrative entity. The organization is what you started. The organization is what you started. That's the invisible work. The program is what is executed, right? That's the visible work. And most of you only put together the program piece. That's the second hat. But you didn't put together the administrative entity hat, right? That's the invisible work. And so when the invisible work is ignored, hear me now, when your priority is on the visible work, the program, but you ignore the invisible work, the work that no one sees, but has the biggest impact on why you're stuck. Because what you started was an organization. That administrative work, that administrative entity, the machine behind the program, when this work is ignored, now what? Grants feel out of reach. Grant, I need grants. Jen, I can't get grant funding. Jen, I've been writing grants, but we can't get grants. We don't have any grant funding, Jen. Jen, I need a grant. I need a grant, right? Now grants feel out of reach. Donors may have given one time, but then they disappear. They may have attended an event, but then you never heard from them again. They may have made a one time donation, but never gave again. You now are paying for everything out of your own pocket. Why? Because you can't get or keep a donor. Why is that? Because the invisible work, the administrative work, ignored. The other thing is what? We don't have board members, Jen. Jen, I need board members. Jen, how do I find board members? How do I get my board members, Jen? How do I get board members engaged? Jen, my board members are not engaged. My board members are not engaged, Jen. My board members are not helping me, Jen. Why is that? Because you did not do the work before you selected that board. The plans, the strategies, the systems for them to be able to follow, to delegate to them. They don't know what to do. Now money feels chaotic, right? We don't have enough money, Jen. We don't have enough money to operate. Jen, I'm paying for everything out of my pocket. Jen, we don't have any consistent funding. Jen, we're not able to hire help. Jen, we're not able to hire people to do the program. I'm having to do everything by myself. Money feels chaotic. Now you can't grow. You can't grow the program. You can't grow your team. There's no growth. You're scared. And now you're burned out. Jen, I'm doing everything by myself. I don't have any help. I'm doing everything. If anything happens to you, the whole organization shuts down. Why is that? Because the visible work, that program work, increases strain. I'm going to say that again. That program work increases strain on the structure of the organization that was never built. I want you to let that sit in. That the more you dig into doing that program, now you've got more strain on the structure of the organization that was never built. Now you don't have enough money to grow. Now you don't have enough money to hire help. Now you're having to scale back the program. Now you're having to pause the program altogether. Now you're going to have to change your mission to something a little easier. Because that program, one hat, put a strain on the structure hat, the organizational hat, the administrative entity hat that manages the money, that raises the money, that puts together the plan to raise the money, the systems, the tools, the process to bring in the money. Now, this work of the program, which is only an expense, the visible work, the program work is only an expense. It will never be anything other than an expense. Money going out, money going out, money going out. Now, this visible work, the program work, the touching the community work, has put now a strain on the organizational work. Now there's no money. Now we don't have enough team. Now there's no plan to raise any money. Now there's no strategy for long-term sustainability. There's no budget. There's no accounting or financial management. There's just money going out, money going out, money going out. No money coming in. Because that visible work put a strain on the structure of the organization that was never built. And that is why the question becomes, where's the funding? Jen, where's the money? How come I can't get funding? Jen, how can I not get a grant? Jen, how do I get donors? Jen, funding is my biggest issue. Jen, we don't have board members that can help us raise money. But that's not the real question. That's not the real question. The real question is not where's the funding or how do I get the funding? The real question is, have we done the invisible work that funding requires? I'm going to say that again. I want you to ask yourself, have you done the work of building and structuring your organization that is required to bring in the funds to do the visible work? Or did you only put together the program work? You only did the program work. You didn't do the administrative work. This is a shift that you have to take. This is a shift. Your nonprofit is not a piece of paper. It's not a piece of paper. And mature nonprofit leaders understand that when you start a nonprofit, the work of the nonprofit is what most people do not see. Did you hear what I said? That when you file that paperwork, that 1023 form, all of that talks about work that most people won't see. Your fundraising strategy, your budget, your financials, your strategy, your systems, your knowledge, your internal strategic planning. That if that work is not done, you can't scale. You can't grow. You can't deliver that program. There's no money. You will start and then stop. Let me say this. The work of putting together your invisible work The work of putting together the organization, the administrative entity, that place and space within the work of the organization, the financial management, the budget planning, the fundraising, the resource development, the strategic planning, the long term planning, that work is not optional. Did you hear what I said? It's not optional. So for those of you that are running around talking about, Jen, we don't have any money. We don't have any money, Jen. We need more money. Jen, I need grants. Jen, I need funding. That's fluid. Money's going to come, money's going to go. Money's going to come, money's going to go. So how do you diversify those streams? How do you keep money coming in? That's the work of the organization. That's the work that's not optional. It's foundational. Did you hear me? It is foundational. Without it, your organization cannot stand. You're going to pay for it out of your pocket. That means you're commingling dollars. You've weakened your position with donors and funders because that's the work that they're evaluating. When you're writing that grant, they're not asking about your passion. They're not asking about only the work that you do within the program. They want to know about that invisible stuff. They ask about your budget. They ask about your financials. They ask about your sustainability plan. They ask about your organizational structure and who's on your board. That's all invisible work. When you do the work of the foundation of the foundational work, the invisible work strengthening, that administrative work that no one sees but the leadership, when you do that invisible work, right? Because again, many of you started your nonprofit organizations based on what you saw another organization do, that visible work of serving, of helping, of touching the community. But what you did not see that organization put together their budget, raise the money. A budget is not just expenses. A budget also says this is how much our weekly, our monthly, our annual costs are, and this is the revenue that we project to bring in every single week and month and year. Right? That's the work you don't see though. But when you do that work, then everything changes within your organization. When you do the work of strategic planning, when you do the work of budgeting, knowing how much money we need to spend and where money comes from, when you do the work of diversifying your funding streams, when you do the work of leadership and strategy development, now you're able to delegate. When you do that internal work, that invisible work, the foundational work, funding shifts. Now you've got a focus. Now you've got a plan. Now you've got a strategy. Now you have systems in place. The grant questions make sense. That when they're asking about your plan for sustainability, when they're asking about who else is funding this organization, when they ask about where else is money coming from when these dollars are gone, now you've got donors that stay, you've got boards that are engaged, and now you've got organizational sustainability. I know it's hard because nobody talks about this part of it. Everybody talks about starting a nonprofit, you can get a grant. Starting a nonprofit, you can get a grant. So in your mind, you think, start a nonprofit, I can just get funding. Money's going to come to me because I'm a nonprofit, because I help people, because I want to make a difference in the community. And that's not true. This is the hard part. It's the truth, however. Your program work makes you feel energized, makes you feel like you are making a difference, and you are. However, it's the work that you are not doing It's the work that makes you feel slow. Jen, I don't like fundraising. Jen, I don't like engaging in the community. Jen, I don't like numbers. Jen, I don't like talking in front of people. Jen, I just don't have time. I don't have time to do that work because that work feels slow. That work feels administrative. It doesn't feel as exciting, right? It doesn't align with your passion. You don't like doing that work. You don't like doing that work. You put off that work. You don't want to do that work. I don't like doing numbers, Jen. I don't like talking to people. I just want to be behind the scenes. I just want to do the program work, Jen. I don't really want to do the administrative work. I just want to run the program, Jen. I don't really want to run the organization. I want somebody else to run the organization. I just want to do the passion work. I just want to do the passion work. I just want to help people. I just want to make a difference in people's lives, right? I want to start the nonprofit, but I don't want to run the nonprofit. I don't want to run it. I don't want to run it. I don't want to manage that. Um, that just seems so less. That's not as exciting. But I want you to know that there's a difference between the passion work, which is the program, and the work of the administrating entity, which is what raises the money. Did you hear what I said? The passion work is nothing but an expense. The work of the administration, the organization, which is what you started, that is what raises the money. And this is where and why many organizations stall, fail. Not because the mission is weak, but because that organizational work, that invisible work, that administrative entity work was postponed. I'll do that later. I'll put together a strategic plan later. I'll put together the fundraising plan later. I'll put together the budget later. I'll figure out how to fundraise later. I'll learn why and the different streams of revenue later. I'll postpone that work. I'll do that later. And as a result, you're stuck. Not because of money. Money's not your problem. Your problem is you did not put together the administrative entity. You did not put together the organization. You only put together the program, the visible work. You didn't put together those things that run the organization, that generate revenue for the organization. Am I right or no? Y'all put it in the comments. Y'all let me know. All right. But if you've realized that you've built a program without the infrastructure to support that program, that's not failure. That's not failure. Jen, I started my nonprofit organization and I did exactly what you said. I built my nonprofit, Jen, and all I did was the program. I didn't know about the organizational work. I didn't know about the administrative entity. I didn't know that there were two hats when I started the nonprofit. I'm a nonprofit, Jen. I didn't know that I had 15 streams of revenue. Jen, I didn't know about fundraising. I didn't know how to put together a strategic plan. I didn't know how to build a team or to delegate. I didn't know any of that. I started my nonprofit, Jen, because I wanted to help people. I started my nonprofit, Jen, because I wanted to help youth. Jen, I started my nonprofit because I wanted to feed the homeless. Jen, I started my nonprofit because I wanted to do whatever it is you wanted to do. I didn't know that there had to be a system, a structure, an infrastructure in place to support financially that thing that I wanted to do. I thought that once I started it, money was going to come, that I was going to get grants, I was going to get donors, I was going to get funding, that automatically money was just going to come to me because I started a nonprofit. But you started an organization. The organization and the program are not the same thing. They're not the same thing. The program, which is what the visible work is, what you want to do, that does not raise money. That only spends money. So now you have started something that has put a strain on what was not built. The organization was not put together. The budget, how much does this thing cost? How much is this going to cost? Weekly, monthly, annual? I don't know. We don't have a budget, Jen. No, we don't know. Jen, I'm paying for everything out of my pocket. Jen, I don't know how to find donors. Jen, I don't have a fundraising plan. Jen, I don't have a board. My board's not helping me raise money. Now you got to strain on the organization. Now the program has got to stop. You got to scale back. We don't have any money to continue. Why? Because you only put together the program. You did not put together the organization. Now, I want you to know that that's not failure. All right. I don't want you to feel any kind of way about that because nobody told you. Nobody told you. Right. No one told you, especially if you and cousin Chad, because I know cousin Chad didn't tell you. Cousin Chad told you to go and fill out that paperwork. You did what Cousin Chad told you to do. That paperwork speaks to the organization. Chad did not clue you in on that. That paperwork speaks to the organization, not that program. Cousin Chad didn't tell you that, though. It's not your fault. All right? It's not your fault. This is not failure. Oh my God, Jen, I did this wrong. I can't tell y'all the number of people that say to me every day, Jen, I wish I'd met you 5 years ago. I wish I'd met you 10 years ago when I started my nonprofit, Jen, and I've been paying for everything out of my pocket, or I started my nonprofit, Jen, and then I had to stop because I didn't know what to do. I was stuck. I was overwhelmed. This is not failure. Okay? It's awareness. And now you get to make a real decision. Will you continue focusing only on your program that only costs money? It never is going to bring in money. It's only and always will cost money. It will always create a strain, a financial strain. That's all it will ever do. So you have a choice. You can make a decision. You can say, do I continue to try to run this program without putting together the organization? And then I'm paying for everything out of my pocket. Or do you build what the funders evaluate? Most of you don't realize that of that program work that you do, right? That program that you're so passionate about, that program is not going to get you a grant. That program is not going to get you donors and funders. That program is not going to generate the money for you. The organization, the invisible work, is what the funders evaluate. The grant foundations, the corporate foundations, the donors, the supporters, they look at the invisible work. Now you have a choice. You can say, Jen, I'm really passionate about the program, the visible work, the work that people see, the work that I'm passionate about, right? The feeding, the clothing, the housing, that work which is an expense. I'm passionate about that work. you can stay right there. You can stay there and you can fund it out of your own pocket. But if you're looking for grant funding, if you're looking for others outside the organization to invest in your organization's work, there are some things that you need to know about what they need to see. Okay? They need to see your budget, your fundraising plan, your financials, your plan for sustainability. That invisible work of the organization, that's what they evaluate. The donors, the funders, the supporters, they evaluate the invisible work, not what you want to do. Am I making sense? Now you have a choice. You can say, Jen, this is my program. This is where my money goes, is for the program. I need more money for the program. Then I need you to be aware that those that would be contributing, donating, supporting, they're not giving money because of what you want to do. They are supporting the organization. And they want to see that the organization is structured, set up to sustain itself. Nonprofit organizations do not collapse, do not stop or cease working because of lack of heart. That's not why organizations fail. They fail or they collapse or they're not able to continue the program because that organizational work was ignored. Ignored. So you have a choice. You can say, Jen, I ignored the organizational work. I didn't put together the strategy. I didn't get together the fundraising plan. I didn't put together a budget. I didn't do any of that work. I didn't do that. And as a result, your organization is strained financially because you didn't put the work together, right? You ignored that work. You put off that work. You may not even know how to do that work. I didn't even know I was supposed to do that work. And that's why you're struggling. Once you understand this shift, once you understand what you don't know, we don't know until we get introduced to it, right? But once you know, then you are the ones that can say, I can now move from being stuck to sustainable. I can move from being stuck to sustainable because money is not your problem. You don't have a money problem. You don't have a money problem. You have a problem with the fact that you did not put together the organizational structure. You didn't do it. Now you can, right? It's not impossible. You can put that work together. That's it. Put it together. Because without it, ignoring it, overlooking it, is going to keep you stuck. So I just want us to be clear that money is not your problem. Money's a fruit. At the root of why there's no money. No, Jen, we don't have a structure to raise money. We don't have a plan to raise money. We don't know how to raise money. We didn't prioritize that work. We don't have a long-term plan to sustain the organization. We just wanted to do the program, which costs money. And now we don't have any money. Why don't we have any money? Because I didn't do the work to produce the money. I didn't structure the organization to generate the money. I thought, Jen, they were going to give us the money because we started the organization. And now you're realizing that's not true. When you're ready and you say, Jen, you've been talking about me. You've been talking about me, Jen. I had no idea that there was a whole level of this nonprofit work that I didn't know about. I had no idea that the reason that I'm stuck is because I did not put together the administrative entity. I had no idea as to why we weren't able to generate the money. And now you do. You can say, Jen, I need help, or Jen, I'm just going to continue to ignore it. It's up to you. I don't have a dog in any fight. Okay. I'm just here to say, for those of you that say, Jen, I now understand why we're stuck. And I'm ready to put together the organization so that we cannot stay stuck. That's the good news. You don't have to stay stuck. All you got to do is put it together. My team and I can do it for you, or I have a nonprofit startup guide that will guide you how to do it yourself. Totally up to you. You can say, Jen, I'm ready. I'm ready for your team to do it for us. We can have it done in less than 30 days, or you can do it, right? I got a whole guide. I got a whole 2-hour video that shows you how to do it yourself, okay? Either way, it's your choice. You can overlook what's missing, or you can put it in place. But I'm going to tell you, overlooking what's missing is going to impact your ability and your capacity to continue to do the work. Because your donors, your funders, your supporters, your contributors, those financial entities that give money, give grants, those foundations, they're looking for the invisible work. They're evaluating the invisible work, right? Everybody that puts in an application has a program. Everybody has a program. Everybody who's putting in an application has a program that's doing amazing work. So is everybody being evaluated on the program? No. They're being evaluated on the organizational invisible work. Who has the budget? Who has a plan for sustainability? Where else is money coming from? Who has other resources? That's the work that's not visible. That's how they're making the decision. You can be in that position to give the funders, the donors, those capital issuing authorities, what they need to see is that your organization is doing that invisible work. Because if you're not, you are a risk to their investment. You don't have a budget. You don't have a plan. You're a one-man show. If anything happens to you, your organization ceases to operate. You are a risk when you don't put together the invisible work, period. And that's the truth. Okay? I want to say thank you all for listening. For those of you that are interested and ready to move forward, for those of you that say, Jen, you've been talking to me. I have ignored, I didn't realize the necessity for that work and why we're stuck. I understand now. I'd love to have a conversation with you. I'd love to propose how my team and I can help you. If you want to do it on your own, we do have the Nonprofit Startup Guide, which comes with a 2-hour video. You can do it yourself. I also am hosting a 3-day event in Houston, May 6th, 7th, and 8th. It's going to be for a small group of leaders who want help. My team and I, with some experts, are going to be putting your organizational work together. We're going to be doing all of that invisible work, your budgeting, your resource development, diversifying your funding streams, putting together your messaging, identifying who your supporters and contributors are, your sustainability strategies, your fundraising plans. Over those 3 days, we are putting together your organizational structure so that you can operate and be successful in generating the revenue needed to operate. putting together your long-term plans. It's a work that we're going to do together, right? My team and I are going to take a lot of that off your hands so that you can do and focus on the work that is important to you. And we can do that with you quickly. All right. We're going to take it off your hands, make it easy for you, give you the step by step so that you don't have to try to figure it out on your own. We want to get you up and standing, up and running, up and operating as quickly as possible. That's what's going to unleash funding opportunities for you. All right. Not more program work, more administrative work. I know it doesn't sound sexy until you're raising money, until you now have the resources to do the work and expand your work. Honey, you're going to be addicted. Um, Fundraising is not begging. Fundraising is showing and sharing and communicating with your supporters, your donors, your community, that they can trust your organization with their resources. That's fundraising. Okay. So we're going to put the fun in fundraising. We're going to put the structure and the strategy into the fundraising. And then we're going to support you so that you're doing it right. All right. If you want to reach out and say, I'm ready, Jen, I'm ready to have a real conversation. I'm ready to move our organization forward. I'm ready to put our organization fully on the path to being fundable, then I would love to work with you. My name is Jennifer. I am your nonprofit expert. 40 years of experience helping organizations not just start, but to grow and to sustain yourself. We answer the question of where's the money? The money is located in your structure. Let's put that in place. All right. I will see you all next time.